Howdy, Kanaji here to share some time-saving tips that I came up with while completing No Man's Sky Expedition 4 Emergence earlier this week. So if you're looking for shortcuts or just want to make sure you're not shooting yourself in the foot like I did, then you're in the right place. Before I go any further though, I just want to remind you that this video does contain spoilers for the expedition's milestones, objectives, and maybe rewards. I won't spoil any of the lore, but if you want to go in completely blind, you've been warned. That being said, I will do my best to avoid major spoilers. Alright, so Emergence is a refreshingly straightforward expedition. Because it's tied to its own fascinating narrative, the milestones are more focused than previous expeditions. That being said, there are a few milestones that I wish I had paid attention to from the start. I was able to complete the expedition in about 4.5 hours, but I could have probably shaved off an hour or two had I known what I know now. Luckily for you, I already made those mistakes. So, for any expedition, I always start by looking at my milestones to see what I can complete passively and what I might need to get started on early. Milestones can technically be completed in any order, so figuring out the best order is actually part of the challenge. I'll highlight my observations in this video, but remember that everyone's experience is different, and you may find a better strategy yourself once you start playing. So don't get too caught up on the details. Alright, so let's go! From the get-go, you're going to start on a hot, stormy planet. Don't worry about your hazard protection. Use your analysis visor to locate your ship and start making your way in that direction. If you can't find it, try selecting the Your Only Sanctuary milestone from the expedition menu. As you're making your way to your ship, you will most likely encounter your first Titan burrow. It should be highlighted red on your analysis visor. Make sure you pay it a visit before leaving the planet in order to complete your The Beast Awakens milestone. Speaking of things you should do before leaving, make sure you're gathering a ton of carbon and ferrite dust as you hike. Also make sure to look out for copper deposits and ancient bones. You'll need a ton of chromatic metal once you take off in order to construct your hyperdrive and fuel it. Luckily, the starting planet is covered in activated copper, I believe, which has a 1-to-1 conversion ratio when turning it into chromatic metal. So gather as much as you can before you leave. I made the mistake of leaving and having to come back to mine all of that. So remember to install your terrain manipulator and set it to the small size to get the most out of each deposit. About 1,000 copper should cover your hyperdrive and the fuel to the first rendezvous. Well, I guess that'd be about 500 activated copper, but you should probably even aim for 1,000 activated copper. And make sure you also refine the endochromatic metal before taking off. Also, you'll need to refine a bunch of carbon into condensed carbon in order to craft antimatter. Since your ship is pretty basic, it's going to take multiple jumps to get to the first rendezvous, so you're going to need a lot of fuel, even after you've constructed your hyperdrive. But, why did I mention ancient bones before? Well, besides being a decent source of income early game, you'll need to collect 16 bones for the Their Lost Children milestone. I waited until later to do this, but honestly I couldn't find a single other planet with ancient bones until after I came back to the starter planet. So I ended up wasting a lot of time searching until I realized that the starting planet already had them. If you've already left the system, fret not. You can simply return to Illusu platform from any space station teleporter. Also, don't worry about dropping the bones if you need more inventory space. The milestone counts as soon as you collect them, and it isn't affected by you deleting or selling them. Oh yeah, and remember how I told you not to worry about your hazard protection? Well, in order to earn the Embrace the Flames milestone, you'll actually need the superheated storm to completely drain both your hazard protection and shields. Just remember to top off once that's done. So as you move from rendezvous to rendezvous, you're going to be making a lot of hyperdrive jumps. I always suggest using your free cam in the galactic map to find shortcuts to each system. The pre-calculated path often adds extra steps that you can bypass by simply selecting further systems yourself. That saves both fuel and time. I remember one time it actually suggested I take some path with multiple planets when I could actually just warp directly to the next rendezvous with no stops. So yeah, it's always a good idea to plot your own path On PlayStation, that would be like hitting circle to disconnect from the locked view. I'm not sure what the buttons would be on other systems, but definitely worth it. And it also gives you a chance to earn a free freighter, which I did because it gave me extra space and materials. So it's a good idea if you end up in one of those like save the freighter battles. Go ahead and get that. You never know when you might need it. So for the they push too far milestone, you'll also need to explore a derelict freighter. These can be found with emergency broadcast receivers and very, very rarely in random encounters. I wouldn't count on that, so plan to pick up a broadcast receiver. Normally I'd point you to Iteration Helios on the space anomaly for a free one, but he actually didn't offer me one on my playthrough. Instead, you'll either need to purchase one for 5 million units from the scrap dealer, or obtain one as a reward for completing the Their Scent Remains milestone. I was having a lot of trouble with that milestone though, so I decided to buy one. Luckily, you can sell the fleshy rope you gather from the Titan nests for a pretty profit. You won't need it for anything later, so selling it is a-okay. Just make sure you sell it in a big stack for maximum profits. Once you've obtained the implant blueprint from that derelict freighter, make sure you complete the rest of the wreck. And you can find a ton of nanites for that creeping foam milestone, in addition to about 500 nanites as an optional prize at the end. We'll come back to that soon though. Right now we need to install that archive override implant that you just got. So this is the part where I mentioned you should hold on to any Hadal cores you find prior to this. You'll need 3 in order to install the implant. In case you were like me though, and sold yours literal seconds before checking the requirements, you can simply find more underwater in any ocean. Alluring specimens may be the most well-known source, but underwater relics are actually much easier to gather. If you know, you know, wink wink. Besides that, you need to gather 90 cytophosphate and purchase a couple of wiring looms, and you're good to go. Once you have that implant installed, you'll need to visit a planetary archive. If you're anything like me, you'll find a bunch on your journey up until the point you need one. Then if you're even more like me, you'll waste 45 minutes with charts and other nonsense trying to find one. In case you do happen to find one by accident, make sure you drop a base computer there. You can then teleport to it later when you have the implant. No building or anything required. If you don't have the base computer unlocked yet, leave a save beacon instead and make sure you visit the space station and note the name of it. That way you can teleport back later. Whatever you do though, don't interact with the archive terminal until after you have the implant installed, otherwise it won't allow you to use it. Alright, so back to that creeping foam milestone. Besides the derelict freighter mentioned earlier, your best sources of nanites are actually the rewards you receive by completing milestones. Each rendezvous gives you a ton of nanites, and various other milestones give you baked goods. Wait, baked goods? Yep. So try to abstain from eating these delicious desserts, and instead take them to Iteration Cronus on the space anomaly. He'll reward you richly for your culinary masterpieces. Other than that, you can also refine the living slime littering the derelict freighters into nanites. Alright, so those are most of the difficult milestones out of the way. But before closing, I want to briefly cover Phase 5. So back in Phase 2, you had to gather some cursed dust that could be found on any of the rendezvous planets. Make sure you hold on to that stack. You'll need 16 to present to the Atlas for Into the Red, and 120 to install the Visceral Synthesizer for the Titan Will Submit. Besides that, make sure you hold on to 4 larval cores, which you will also need for the Visceral Synthesizer. Sorry, that's a difficult word to say. The last milestone, Spawn Beneath Your Skin, is super simple. Just find another Titan burrow and take out the little worms. Each one will drop a vile spawn upon death. These disappear really quickly though, and they roll, so I recommend standing downhill as you shoot the worms in order to catch them quickly. And that's it. It's a relatively simple expedition, but the unique narrative and hunt experience make it well worth the effort. The rewards are also pretty nifty. Oh, and one last tip. Always save often. I didn't have a single crash in this expedition, but you never know, so make sure you save often. Alright, thank you so much for checking out my video. Last expedition I put out a similar video, and honestly the comments had some tips that were even better than mine, and they had the experience of playing even past the first week. So if you have any questions, need help with anything, or want to share your own personal pro tips, go ahead and leave a comment below. It really helps, not just me, but other people. And I'll also be answering comments down there too, as best as I can. And if you found any of my tips in this video helpful, please leave a like as well. I make all sorts of No Man's Sky videos focusing on every aspect of the game, so if you love No Man's Sky or simply enjoy space exploration games, you can't go wrong pressing that subscribe button. Either way, thanks for watching and for your support. I'll see you in the next video. Happy expeditioning! See ya!